It's spoiler in time, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tom Merritt. We're going to spoil for you the final episode of Season 5 of The Shield, Episode 11. We're going to spoil Game of Thrones, Season 5, Episode 7. We're going to spoil Mad Max Fury Road. But first, Brian Brushwood is going to spoil you on who's joining us on Spoiler in Time.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the blue corner, it's Derek Chen. Thank you for joining us, buddy. I can't believe that schedules worked out so you could hang out, and we're going to talk Mad Max Fury Road. What did you think of it?
I enjoyed it. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as everyone else has. I thought it was a good, solid movie, but people were going nuts over it. I thought it was a good thrill ride. It's just, for me, halfway through, I was wondering, is this an artsy movie or is this an action flick? And it had both, but the fade to black, I think, is always something like, it's like the Lord of the Rings. There's just too many fade to blacks when you think the movie's about to end, and nope, there's another, it goes on for another 5 minutes, and then it fades to black again. It kind of threw me off, I guess.
So, did you like it more or less than Avengers Age of Ultron?
Less. Definitely. I mean, I'm a big comic book guy, so I loved Age of Ultron a lot better. I think just the jokes are great.
Dude, you know what's funny is I say, because I'm such a big comic guy, that's why I liked Age of Ultron less, is because it gave me less of what I was hoping for. But I want to hear Tom. And now, keep in mind, I watched it.
Well, hold on. Are we spoiling? Are we going to go on into Mad Max and skip movie draft? Do it after?
We'll do movie draft second. Let's
do movie
talk
draft.
Ultron.
Okay, I need to tell air traffic control.
Sorry.
Movie draft on the runway.
Sorry about that.
We'll wave on Furiosa and the guitar player in to talk about Mad Max. Yeah. So I'm somewhere in between you guys because I enjoyed every minute. Looks like my dog was about to throw up. I'm sorry. I enjoyed every minute of Mad Max Fury Road. I also was afraid I wasn't going to enjoy it as much because everyone had told me how great it was. So I think I wasn't losing my mind like some people were the first week because I knew it was amazing. And so it wasn't blown away in that respect. But also, I started watching it and I was like, okay, this is good. This is good. Maybe I'm not going to like it as much as everybody else. And then another layer would come along on top of it, and I'd say, "Oh, well, we haven't stopped yet. This is pretty great. Okay, so we're gonna keep this chase scene going even longer. Oh, now they're a team. Now we've got this weird swampland with the crazy blue light, and now we've got a mystery. And they just kept layering something else on top. By the end, I was like, this was amazing. I loved every minute of it.
Can I tell you, for me, it was the moment of realizing, and a lot of these names, they mention them briefly in the movie, but they don't really stick. This is what's great about it, is that it speaks the language of movies in that you can have a character that you identify with deeply and honestly not know their name. We saw this with Edward Norton's character on Fight Club. It wasn't until days later that I realized that they never say his name. But it's like I felt like I identified with him. And so likewise, I since came to know he's referred to as the War Boy. But the War Boy was so obviously a throwaway character at the beginning, and he just kept sticking around. Yeah. And then at some point he became sympathetic, and at some point they're part of this team, and they've got a crazy plan, and they realized there is an amazing review from a 70-year-old woman. Type in Mad Max review 70-year-old woman, and there's a few snippets in there that I think are really worth doing. There we go. AV Club from The Onion. Is that not it? Okay. Yeah. No.
Wait, it's from The Onion. Are we sure it's really a 70-year-old woman?
It's birthmoviesdeath.com.
There you go. Birthmoviesdeath.com. Okay. But it's quoted on the AV Club blog. But she gives some really great insights about how one of the things that, she said, number one, she didn't doze off during it, which she does during most movies these days. Number two, that it had great empowering themes, and that she understands it's taken some flack as being a non masculine movie or whatever, and he says, and yet she sees Mad Max as the perfect gentleman, somebody whose honor binds him to take care of these ladies, and she goes on to say that it was a novel discovery that after spending all their time trying to get away, they realize that where they belong is back at home. You know, they just need to fix where they're at and that they have a good space. It's utterly adorable. I don't know. I loved my experience on a meta level of from the opening scene of being utterly unprepared for everything that happens before the opening credits. Like that moment, it's almost like a middle finger when the opening credits come in and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, did you not even notice that we hadn't even done the opening credits yet? And then, the way everything grew beyond that, I loved it.
I think there is something really interesting that they did in miniature and in large. You're talking about Warboy, it made me think of it. There's a pattern to action movies, which is hero gets attacked, hero recovers from attack, hero looks like he's going to be defeated, hero pulls a fast one and gets out of tight situation, right? That's kind of the pattern. You know those beats, and the way they keep it interesting is to play with those beats, right? And make one a little longer, or make one look like there's no way he could get out of that. What they did, I noticed a lot, is hero gets out of situation and then immediately it fails, right? Or immediately something else puts him in a new situation, so that you were thrown out of that feeling of safety constantly. And Warboy is that story writ large. Like you said, you think he's a throwaway character. You're like, oh, okay, he's going to have the blood bag. That's how Max gets with Furiosa. And then Warboy's going to die. Well, except he does. Except, wait, no, he doesn't. He didn't actually die. And that happens to him a couple of times where it's like, oh, okay, and now we know his story's over. No, it's not. And it's kind of reminiscent of what Derek's saying with the fade to black. You feel like Warboy's character has faded to black 2 or 3 times before he finally does.
Maybe that's the brilliance, and I'll toss it to you, Derek, for this, but maybe that's what I find to be the brilliance in this, in that it knows that you are going to walk into this movie expecting a visual-only feast and not really get much more out of that. And it almost plays that against you in that it delivers so heavily right from the get-go. Everything seems surface level, but then you're like, oh wait, no, they've created a consistent, borrowed Nordic religion underneath this, and these social constructs, and yet also masterful cinematography. After everything being as filthy and as horrifying as it is. And we've talked about this before. To me, when a movie's at its strongest, it casts its spell, and you don't realize that you're swallowing giant bitter pills that don't make any sense. Like, yeah, of course you would capture a random person and plug in his blood to yours for some
and of course someone would
benefit.
Be drained of blood for hours and hours, and then be able to get up and fight like crazy.
Yeah, right. Of course, right. Makes sense. But then after enough of that time. And Max escapes, and he looks up, and you've got these sirens, barely wearing anything, this nubile flesh covered in water, and all I can think of is like, water, don't you turn off the hose, you're wasting all the water.
Right.
It's like I felt it on this primal level, and it's like, you got to be a master spellcaster to get me to do that, and they totally did.
One thing that I appreciated, and I think it was in an interview, that they, for most dystopian movies that you see, or like post-apocalyptic movies, it's always very dark and bleak. And this is one movie that's really bright and, to your point, visually gorgeous. I think going back, though, what I have issue with the movie, and this could be just the kind of the result of just all the entertainment I've been watching, but I'm used to going into a movie and kind of knowing the universe already, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Star Wars, Star Trek, all of these. I go in and I already know the backstory to a certain degree. I already know what world this is, and I think that's where I feel a little unfulfilled, is that I'm watching a movie and they hint at all these things that they never really talk about. They just talk about these destinations and these religions and the social structure, but I want to learn more about it. And I think that's why when I left the movie, because this is kind of that first step back into this world, that I just felt like I wanted to know more. And I didn't feel satisfied in the sense of knowing what this world was.
Number one, you're 100% right. The only difference is you score that in the column of bad thing. I score it in the column of extraordinarily good thing. My favorite movies are always ones that I'm left wanting to know more. I mean, Donnie Darko is a divisive movie. Some people think it's cliche and trite. Other people love it. I know that I left that movie theater, and 20 minutes later, like just asking Bonnie, like, what do you think that meant? What do you think that meant? And then it hit me. I was like, I think I love that movie. I think I love that movie. And that's how I feel about Mad Max. Is like, this is the Mad Max definitely took place in a very near future Australia. The Road Warrior still in Australia at some indeterminate post-apocalyptic time, and Thunderdome was about the restructuring in a post, it's sort of like The Walking Dead, basically, right? You see societies trying to form in a post-apocalyptic world. This one was on a different planet. This one might not have even been Earth, for all I know. It was so larger than life and so over the top. I adored it for those reasons.
And I felt the same feeling of entertainment, desolation, and an atmosphere was created that Mad Max and Road Warrior created when I first saw them. Right? You go back and you watch them now, and Thunderdome is, to me, almost like a different kind of movie. It's not bad, but it's much more mainstream to me. Whereas, the originals, like, you are out there in the dirt, you're out there in the grit, and this is a post-apocalyptic world with hardly anything and no resources, and you believe it. You go back and watch it now, and you can see the wires, right? You can't see the wires. This is that exact same feeling you had then replicated. That is so difficult to do, especially when you have the same George working on this later version that you did the original version.
And again, this is I mentioned this before, but Ernie Klein nailed it. He said, imagine if George Lucas took a 14-year, 18-year break from Star Wars and came back, and instead of doing The Phantom Menace, he gave us something better, as good as Empire, just right out of the gates.
Made you feel the same way you had felt then.
Yes,
but was not a repackaging, was a modernization, was basically as if you were telling the story for the first time.
Yeah. By the way, there's amazing TED-like talks about all the stunt choreography that they did, the justifications for all of the insane stuff. The whip antennas coming back and forth, being like, oh, of course you would have giant counterbalanced whip antennas to throw bodies in order to avoid spikes on war rigs as they go.
There's a whole story behind the guitar guy too.
Oh,
right. There was a whole.
Yes, yeah. I mean, here's the funny part: but there doesn't even need to be. Like, because I was already like, yeah, of course you poke out your eyes and start thrashing on a guitar. That makes total sense.
Because why wouldn't you?
Well, because somebody's got to inspire the masses. Come on,
it's the trumpeter.
Yes,
of the army.
So do we know if this, because they've already announced that they're doing sequels, do we know that it's just going to be going back to Tom Hardy's Max's storyline, or are we going to see a movie with Furiosa and kind of her next steps?
As far as I know, it's not going back to Furiosa. And the only reason I say that is the original title of the second movie was Mad Max Furiosa, and it has been changed to Mad Max, I think, The Wasteland. And it definitely is bringing Max back, but they're not saying anything about Furiosa.
He's a great character.
If I had to guess, my guess is they said, look, we can get Charlize Theron, but she'll only commit to one movie. And George Miller said, great, second movie is now called The Wasteland. Sign Charlize Theron.
Yeah. Man, so good. I adored it. I thought, let me ask you, Tom, did you like it better or less than Age of Ultron?
Better. No hesitation, better.
Yeah. And it's weird.
I don't know if I liked it as much as Avengers.
I'll tell you what, though, the mere fact that it's in the running says something, because The Avengers was one of my top 5 movies of all time. But I'll have to watch it a few more times to really wrap my head around it. But man, yeah, well done, George Miller. And by the way, we've talked about it before, but the fact that I forget the name of the bad guy, Mux, I guess, is it Mux? Nux. The bad guy was played by the same actor that played Toe Cutter in the original Mad Max. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. He's just and we talked about this. We talked about this on the Weird Things podcast, but I don't know that I've ever seen a villain introduced the way they introduced Nux. It was as though they introduced Darth Vader as the wizened old man dying on the Death Star, and then they showed him painfully putting on his armor and then going out and then force choking some people. It was amazing to have your bad guy start as so weak and yet see him built up, and I don't know. I loved it.
Jack and F is claiming that Joe was Toe Cutter, not the guy who played Nux.
Wait, who's Nux then? I don't know.
Nux was the war boy.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
The Immortan Joe is the villain.
Okay, Joe. Joe. I would not have picked Joe for the name of the villain, but whatever. But
that was also
Joe. Hey, he's a villain.
The one minor thing for me too is that all the the secondary characters all look really familiar from other movies. So I also spent half the film trying to figure out who, one was from Transformers 3. Like, turned out a couple of them were from X-Men. So that also just got me a little bit on the distracted end, but that's just on my end.
Dude, last thing. Tip of the hat to the outrageous over-the-top construction of ridiculous cars and making me believe in all of them. Yeah, of course, put one car on top of another car. You need a sedan on top of a sedan on top of Bigfoot's wheels. Yeah, let's go for that.
What else are you going to do with a VW Bug?
Yeah.
Put it on top of your tanker as a place as a gun emplacement.
Exactly.
Yeah. Immortan Joe. That's why it's hard to remember him as Joe, because they also keep calling him Immortan.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. We got ourselves a little wrap up.
Tondagasa in the chat says he kept having the feeling that they were ships having pirate battles. That is not an accident. That is the stated reason for how they did that.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to thank Derek Chen. He has not been watching Game of Thrones or The Shield, and we're going to move on into spoiling those. So thanks again, man. Really appreciate you hanging out with us.
Yeah, thanks for letting me join. Always a pleasure, guys.
All right, take care.
But first, Tom, we need to check in on the movie draft.
See, it threw me off.
I know.
I'd be a horrible. It's a really good thing I'm not doing air traffic control.
This is the second time that I've done that to you. I apologize, by the way.
No, I think I did it the first time to myself. But in any case, right now we've got a race. Everybody but Team DTNS has had a movie out. And so Team DTNS in last place, alone with $0. If you turn it upside down, we're the winners.
I cannot believe that this far into it, GFQ is still number one. $414 million, basically just on Furious 7 and Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Basically on Paul Blart Mall Cop, because at this point, Avengers Age of Ultron has grossed $410 million, and Furious 7, $347 million, which is impressive. But Furious 7 alone wouldn't put him in front of Age of Ultron, but the $66 million of Paul Blart Mall Cop does take him over the top.
Can we just call it that Amtrekker has no chance to hit number one right now?
What do we got? Insidious and Spy. They're both being advertised quite a bit, I have noticed.
Well, I mean, okay, let's be generous and say $100 million a pop. I mean,
sure. Yeah,
and let's be generous and say Ultron gets another $100 million. That puts him out at.
Then he'd be in contention for sure. But those things aren't going to happen. So
I don't know.
And if all we're saying is in contention, I don't know.
Well, so here's the problem for
Brett's
Frog.
a nice guy, Brian. I don't think we need to be saying
he's a total asshole, and he was saying that he hates you the other day. So here's the problem: is that Frog Pants is sort of out of ammo. They got Unfriended, Mad Max Fury Road, and Pitch Perfect 2. All of those are out. All of those are now in the long tail.
And Terminator Genesis.
I mean, Terminator Genesis is going to do $20 in a taco, and Poltergeist will do.
Terminator Genesis is not going to do $20 a taco. That's going to do.
Poltergeist will do maybe a taco. Terminator Genesis will also get $20. However,
Terminator Genesis is going to do well. What are you talking about?
No.
You're crazy.
It'll do $130. $130 for Terminator Genesis.
It'll do more than $130.
I don't.
Oh, it'll do more than. I will bet you a steak you owe me.
Okay, well, I owe you like 4 steaks right now, and so now I'm now into betting cups of coffee. No. In all seriousness, I would say the over/under for Terminator Genesis is 150. I would be surprised if it does much better than 150.
I'm thinking of it as a 150 plus, so that now you're into You're Not Crazy world as far as I'm concerned.
And
but
Pixels,
I think your point remains the same.
Pixels will do about 100. So it's like, where does that put them? That barely even catches them up to GFQ and Amtrekker at that point.
Right.
So I don't know. And now here's the only thing is that Night Attack, we've got Tomorrowland coming out, which, by the way, My biggest hesitation about Tomorrowland was the tie-in to the Walt Disney World stuff and the fact that Disneyland's Tomorrowland took you to Tomorrowland somehow or whatever. I was like, ugh, I didn't like that. Read an article in Wired where Lindelof was talking about how that's how apparently everyone felt, and they removed that scene, and that there's no tie-in to the Disney parks whatsoever. Oh. That's not in there. Don't worry about it. Which makes me feel better. Inside Out also is universally getting positive reviews, saying that it's one of Pixar's best. So I'm optimistic there. I don't know that we quite have enough to cross over 600 or 700 million.
I am very much looking forward to how Aloha does for you, which, frankly, you laugh. I think it'll do better than maybe you think. And San Andreas, which has The Rock and is disaster porn. I think it might do better than people think, too. I don't know if it was worth $16 or not, but we'll find out, won't we?
Dude, something tells me you got enough scratch-off lottery tickets that it doesn't matter if you get a couple of duds.
That's the theory. And San Andreas is not the canary in the coal mine for that theory.
To be honest, my current prediction right now is that you will not be for sure the winner, and it will be Fantastic Four that takes you over the edge. I think Fantastic Four, you will need it, and I think it will do well enough that you will end up winning.
I was going to say it would have to be that weekend of Vacation and Mission Impossible. That would be when if we're going to go over the top, that's the week we would go over the top. But you might be right. It might be delayed a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a little more bearish.
I think Vacation's going to do better than people think. We saw the trailer for that before Mad Max. Did you?
No, that wasn't on there.
They did a great job of making the case for you to care about Vacation again. Up and to the point of having a clip of what's the guy from The Office who's in it? He was in Hangover as well.
Yeah.
Who's starring in it, saying, "Oh no, this is a new Vacation. You don't have to know anything about our old Vacation." Because the theory is that this is the young kid from Chevy Chase's Vacation, growing up and wanting to replicate his childhood experience, and so he's talking to his kids like, "You don't have to know anything about the old Vacation to enjoy the new Vacation."
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah,
so
that's clever, and it
can
actually
have a self-referential wink to take everyone along.
All right, so let us move along to Game of Conversations, the show that was almost entirely conversations between 2 or 3 people for an hour.
I didn't mind it.
Listen, when I say this, I realize that show was still better than 90% of the shows I watch.
Yeah.
However,
yes.
it was the first time where I looked at the clock for real and was just like, wow, we're just a lot of talking this episode. Not a lot happening. We got a little bit happening towards the end. We actually got a fight scene towards the end in the pit. But we didn't move the story along at all, in my opinion, until the amazing final meeting.
Yes, and let's start with that, because what's interesting is for an episode that quote unquote not a lot happened, what did happen in the pit submarine or whatever in front of the Queen, it launches us, leapfrogs over giant sections of, spoiler alert, turns out that the script was leaked in the form of books by George R. R. Martin.
Just stop with that. All you're doing is antagonizing the people who don't like it when you mention the books.
I totally am.
Just leave them alone, Brian.
I'm going to do it every time. Tom. I'm going to torture them. They leapfrogged over an entire book. Like pretty much an entire book got leapfrogged, and that's fine.
Well, here's the cleverest thing about that, Brian. This hasn't happened in the book. We're talking about Tyrion meeting Daenerys, which happened in the show. Okay, just to be clear.
And is strongly hinted at in the books.
It hasn't happened in the book. And these two characters are on an entirely different road in the last book. They're on a similar road, but it's not the same. So all of a sudden you're like, well, this might not be how they meet. And this, and what happens next week when we have her react to the fact that he said, hey, guess what? I'm Tyrion Lannister, may not be how she reacts in the book. And I think that's great. I love that. I am looking forward to next week and finding out what happens. And I don't mind at all that I just got to see Tyrion meet Daenerys for the first time, because I'll still feel that way when I read it.
Oh, sure. Yes. Also, we leaped forward. I loved the fact that very quickly, it took like 2 or 3 episode arc for us to get to through Cersei empowering the Sparrows, because it's her only play. Like, she can give power to them and she can placate the king's court in order to allow them to run a little bit wild. And then this is the episode where it's like, uh-oh, somebody empowered a true believer. That always works out well, 9/11. It was, I mean, come on, split screen us. But it's like, I don't know. It was, I thought that was handled well and quickly enough, and indicated that we're about to see a whole, what to me is one of the most fascinating arcs in the books. Spoiler alert. There's
Wait, are there books?
Yeah. They're
Because I don't think in the books Lady Olenna is involved in this at all, and I love that scene where she's talking to the High Sparrow, and instead of like we've seen this scene before, like where's the High Sparrow? Well, guess what? This old wooden cup over here of a man is the High Sparrow. Oh, okay. Lady Olenna doesn't miss a beat. She just figures it out as she's insulting him, and she doesn't stop insulting him, and she doesn't back down one bit. But you can tell that she may have felt a little bit of fear for the second time now in a couple of episodes, that her plans are not going to work as well as she thought.
Yeah, I'll So as long as we're changing things from the books, in the TV show, it really feels like we should be seeing a snap reaction of some variety from Tommen by now. We've seen him for 3 episodes now be like really exasperated and powerless.
I don't know how I feel about that.
But this is a dude who just got laid and is a man in this world. It doesn't make a lot of sense for me that he's not overreacting and doing something very much like his brother would have done.
Yeah, because my first reaction is like, well, but Tommen is weak. He's not strong. He never expected to be king. He doesn't really know what he's doing. But you can still make an argument that that's even more reason why he would do something rash, because he's immature and he doesn't know what he's doing. I can still buy the fact that he essentially has always just looked to mommy for what to do, and so that's what he's doing now. Is she'll fix it. And I'll buy that. I'll buy that.
And by the way, yes, there was talking happening during it, but Samuel Tarly got a little bit laid.
You know, that happens in the book too.
Well, yeah. Wait. Did it? Do I not remember it?
Do the words "fat pink mast" bring anything back to you?
No, but that's my new band's name.
It's my Pink Floyd tribute band.
Fat Pink Mast. No. I feel like if something happened, it happened on their journey. But that also differed from the book. They killed Aemon Targaryen.
Well, they didn't kill him. He died of natural causes.
They murdered.
Yeah. He dies.
David Lindelof murdered him
Stake me to the heart.
An
Because he was a White Walker after all.
An uncredited script edit.
Let's just start spoiling things that actually haven't happened in either the television or the book.
Yes, and also throwing some libel in there while we're at it.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, no. When did he get laid in the book? I thought it was on the journey, like on the boats or something down. But I'm dumb and don't remember.
I'm looking here. Thankfully, Wired keeps track of this. They do develop the relationship. She doesn't say here, and I think you may be right about it being on the boat rather than in
Castle Black.
Castle Black, yeah. But again. Master Aemon does die, but not at this point. He dies at a later point.
Yeah. Yes. In the book, they all get on a boat together and head on south. But
I'm on a boat. I'm gonna die.
I love. I thought Maester Aemon was a fantastically acted character, and I think they
I'm sad to see him go.
Yeah. I mean, it's like
so what do you think's gonna happen? Because here's the thing, folks, for all of our joking about book this, book that, we don't know what's going to happen while Jon is away, because he's not away in the book. We don't know what's going to happen with Daenerys and Tyrion start Jon next week, because that hasn't happened. This is all.
Well, and plus also, and this doesn't even mention the Sansa Ramsay, whole setup where it's like, she tries to get a signal out to the watcher at the wall. What's her name?
Brienne's the one looking for the candle.
Yeah. Dude, it's I don't know, it's great. I love the fact that we have utterly departed. Like, anyone who read the books now has no mooring whatsoever. Anything can
books?
happen. What's that?
They're books?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Spoiler. I should have warned you in advance. The script was leaked in advance. This guy, George R.R. Martin, that's his Twitter handle.
I will never listen to another word of this show again while I'm hosting it.
Can we...
It'll be a trick.
Can we move on?
Let's move on
to
postpartum. It's basically a rom-com episode for The Shield.
Okay,
Danny goes to the hospital, and they're like, "Who's gonna get the money from the baby pool?" And there's a whole hilarious hijinks, and in the end, they just give it to her because she never let on who's the father. But wink, wink, it's Vic.
Okay.
Look, I just tried to pick like the least significant thing that
No.
happened.
Oh, but this is the brilliance of this episode because they couple it with there is a very dark element to this episode, and then there are the lightest, most tritest elements of there. Because the other B story is you got the course in pimpology that Wagenbach takes, right? And you've got this bizarre story of him trying to hit on.
We are really okay. So, and you know where this is going, and I don't. But we are building a very interesting character profile of Wagenbach that Wagenbach might build himself, where he has always got an eye for a lady, whether she a lady of the night or a lady detective to be. And he implements that pimpology right away, just the way he implemented the cat strangling when Agent Coulson told him about it.
Well, okay, so here's the thing, is I'm convinced, and I did not realize this the first time that I watched it through, but I guarantee you it was an intentional decision to take the darkest, most horrific theme in the entire... This is the best episode of the series. This is the defining episode of the series, in my opinion. They coupled the most important, painful to watch, horrific storyline with two of the lightest, tritest things. Because what else you got? You also have that former guy in charge.
We have Wagenbach discovering that Billings owns the vending machine.
Yeah, and was abusing his power the time that he was acting captain or whatever, right?
He's got this whole Kavanaugh abuse of power case, and then like the one clear... identifiable and provable abuse of power is that Billingsley owns the vending machines.
Yeah, okay. And then secretly, that scene in which, spoiler alert, Shane murders Lem is so good on so many levels. It is good because, number one, the acting is exquisite and it feels so real.
Yeah.
And you see... nakedly from the dialogue, this is the writing side of things, you see Shane begging Lem to let him end this in any way besides murdering him.
Yep.
And Lem saying all the wrong things. I will not go to Mexico. I will do my time. I will not rat you out. And he's like, that's fine that you're saying that, but seriously, we can't have you in a position. But if you don't go to
Mexico, there's only one way to be sure.
Right. Yeah. He's like, are you sure? Are you really sure you don't want to go to Mexico?
And then sorry.
Here
it's way too late.
Oh, and then that moment, and then that moment of the pause. You're like, is it going to happen now? And instead, it goes sideways. They're like, Mara's pregnant. Oh man,
I got you a sandwich.
Yeah, what? No, but there's this genuine joy from Lem. He's like, I hope I get to see him before I go do time in jail.
Oh yeah, I mean, talk about foreshadowing. Here's the thing: as soon as Vendrell didn't have a tail, is when I became 78% sure that Lem was going to die.
It was
the setup was so that I'm like, well, Shane is the guy who does stuff like that. Shane is the guy who doesn't trust Lem. Shane is the guy who looks out for number one. Shane is the guy who thinks he can get away with pretty much anything. He is going to kill Lem because there won't be anybody there to stop him. But that didn't change my appreciation of that scene anymore any less because you don't want him to do it. And you're looking as a viewer for every opportunity for you to be wrong about this situation as you're watching Shane do exactly the same thing.
Well, and number one, like I felt ill watching it. Like, I mean, it was like I felt sick. And then even after the grenade detonates, it would be almost easier to swallow if Shane was just purely evil and just shrugged and be all like, well, that's how we do.
Or if Lem just died. I mean, talk about skewering you in the heart. The S.H.I.E.L.D. producers decide, we won't just have him die. We'll have him sit there and breathe out a few Shanes.
Look Shane in the eye. And Shane, I have no doubt that in his heart, he's truly sorry as he cries and says, I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I had to.
It's the definition of a sociopath in a way, which is like, I mean, obviously I'm not going to not blow you up with a grenade, because that just wouldn't be logical. But I guess I feel something kind of like sorry. I really am sorry.
It's and then here's the twist, and I don't think I realized the poetic echo of it until you pointed it out to me, where in your texts immediately afterwards. First of all, you started with an ambiguous pun.
Sometimes we all deal with grief in different ways, and my way was to text Brian as soon as I was done with this episode with the word "Lemainsky."
Lemainsky, and what's funny is I don't want to ruin anything, so. And you wrote lem-ain't-ski, and I just write. Huh?
And I knew when you wrote that, I'm like, oh, I need to make him clear that I've watched this and I'm not just guessing or being, yeah.
Yes. And you're like, just watch The Shield. And I'm like, and what happened? Because I didn't want to ruin it for you.
Yeah.
Well, so here's my point: is that in this conversation, you nailed it. You're like, oh yeah, no, he blew up. Shane Vendrell blew up Lem, and so on. And you go on. This is a great insight. You said, so crazy, but I saw it coming, and so genius. Now Vic is in the role of Acevedo in episode 1, trying to find Terry/Lem's killer and not knowing that it's one of his own. Shane has to hide from Vic the way Vic had to hide from Acevedo. It's nuts. That was something that I did not realize the first time I saw it.
Yeah, it's a I don't know if it's a circular story exactly, but it is a fractal version of itself, which I just think is brilliant. Vic has created his own monster.
I'll tell you what, if you guys are playing along with us, if you've already seen The Shield, I think now's the time to join in. I think I am going to keep watching the rest of these with you as we go along. Mainly because I don't want to, I'm now at the point when I want to talk the most, but I run the highest risk of, as I've done before, spilling something out of turn.
Now, here's the thing. This is something I haven't had to deal with in any of this, which I actually am getting to the point where I'm like, oh crap. I only have 2 seasons left.
Yeah.
For the longest time, it's like, there's lots more S.H.I.E.L.D. And I know at times it may feel like, Tom, why don't you just binge on these? Just go with them. And I'm like, I am savoring it at this point. Like, I like parceling it out one a week. There is between season 5 and season 6 a mini-sode. Is it worth me tracking that down? Did you watch it? Do you remember it?
Man, I don't know that I have.
It's called Wins and Losses. It was put out on the website. It's 15 minutes long, and it's after the funeral. Vic begins an investigation.
Can you send that over to me? I would.
I don't have it. I'm looking at the Wikipedia list of episodes, and it's referenced there.
Speaking of which, the reason I want to see it is because there have been minisodes that have been done very well. Most recently in Breaking Bad, you remember they did those minisodes where it's like Badger's lost the key trying to get into some garage or whatever, and it turns out.
This is from 2007, so this is like the dawn of minisodes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But I would love to see that in that context.
All right, I'm gonna try to dig that up and look at it before I watch On the Jones, which is episode 1 of season 6, but I will definitely watch episode 1 of season 6 if nothing else.
Right on, man. Dude, I'm so excited. I'm so excited you got here.
I'm so glad that you jumped in and watched it too. It's so fun to be able to share, compare my experience with your reliving of it.
Well, and plus also, when I encouraged you to begin the journey, this was the moment. This was the moment where it's like, I just wanted you to get hooked enough that you would get here, because this may have been one of the most defining moments of television. And to be honest, this is the moment Bonnie stopped watching. It was it was literally too much for her. She was just like, I swore it off. Like, she does not want to even hear me She still doesn't know how it ends. She doesn't want to know how it ends. She can't handle thinking about it or that world existing. It's.
And the crazy thing is, I was like, well, Lem's not going to die. And you even did a great service to me by saying, a lot of the rest of this, this show is pretty much about Lem. And that didn't give it away to me, I was like, oh, yeah, the struggle about Lem and what he knows and whether he's the weak guy. I can see that. And now it takes on a whole new meaning.
It very much is all about Lem
from
here on out.
I thought Lem's not going to die. And it wasn't because of what you said. I've just felt that way. I'm like, Lem's not going to die until the moment that Shane says, well, I don't have a tail. Or he didn't say it, but we know that Shane's the only one that's going to meet up.
He pulls over and looks, and it's clear that he does not have a tail.
Right. As soon as he shows up with Lem, and he's like, the other two guys have a tail, they're shaking him, I immediately flipped. I'm like, oh, he is going to die.
Yeah, man, that awkward pause. I mean, first of all, hopefully I will never know this in person, but I have the deep sickening suspicion that is what it feels like before a lot of real murders happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I hope I never find out personally.
But I mean,
yes.
it's and again, whether it's right or wrong, it cast the spell, and I bought it, and I was there. It was insane.
I bought him a sandwich and everything.
And there was a sandwich.
Is spoiler in time. You, my friends, have been spoiled in what we hope is the best way, and we will spoil you again next week.
Yeah.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.